This is the biggest weather story of the week, and for millions of you, it could be the biggest weather story of the entire summer. We are tracking a multi-day severe weather siege that is about to roll across the heart of the country, from the Dakotas to the Great Lakes, into the Ohio Valley, and all the way to the East Coast. At the same time, the National Hurricane Center is watching a system in the Gulf of Mexico that has a very high chance of becoming our next named storm. Damaging winds, baseball-size hail, multiple rounds of tornadoes, and a possible tropical storm. It is all happening within the next 72 hours, and I'm going to walk you through every single day of it. But before we get into the maps, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment right now and tell me two things: where you're watching from tonight and what the sky looks like where you are at this very moment. Clear and calm? Storm clouds building? Muggy and still? I read these live, so let me know, because some of you watching right now are sitting inside the exact zone we're about to talk about, and I want to know what you're seeing on the ground before we dive into the forecast. All right, let's get into it. Here's the big picture. We've got a very active jet stream digging into the northern plains, and it's going to act like a conveyor belt, firing off one disturbance after another over the next several days. Each of these disturbances is going to ride along a boundary loaded with heat and humidity, and that combination is exactly the recipe severe weather forecasters dread, because it doesn't just mean one bad afternoon, it means back-to-back multi-day threats across a huge swath of the country. On top of that, we've had a real air quality story unfolding as well. Wildfire smoke, some of it drifting down from Canada, has been sitting over the upper Midwest, and Wisconsin in particular has been under air quality alerts with unhealthy to very unhealthy conditions. That smoke is expected to clear out through Monday morning as winds shift out of the south and southwest, but that same wind shift is what's going to drag up the warmth and moisture that fuels tomorrow's storms. So we go from a hazy, hazardous air Sunday right into a severe storm Monday. It's one extreme handing the baton to another. Let's break it down day by day. We'll start with today, because there's already a threat on the board. The Storm Prediction Center has a slight risk of severe storms in play across parts of the northern plains. That includes North Dakota, South Dakota, and stretching into Montana and Wyoming, with an additional area of concern across parts of the southeast. The main hazard today is wind. We're talking damaging gusts up to 80 miles an hour possible in the strongest cells across North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, and Wyoming. That is enough to snap tree limbs, down power lines, and toss around anything that isn't tied down. Patio furniture, trampolines, that sort of thing. If you're in that zone tonight, this is a good time to double check that anything loose in your yard is secured. Large hail is also a concern, and in North Dakota specifically, forecasters aren't ruling out hail up to the size of a baseball. That's large enough to cause real damage to vehicles, roofing, and siding. So if you get a severe thunderstorm warning in that region, getting your car under cover is a smart move if you can do it safely. The good news for today, the tornado threat is very low. This is primarily a wind and hail event, not a tornado outbreak. But low doesn't mean zero. So if you're under a warning, still take it seriously and have a way to get updates. Meanwhile, across the upper Midwest, especially Wisconsin, today is more about smoke than storms. Air quality has been in the unhealthy to very unhealthy range, and an air quality advisory remains in effect into Monday. If you're in that region and you're sensitive to poor air quality, it's worth limiting time outdoors today. The smoke should begin clearing out overnight as winds shift, setting the stage for tomorrow's much bigger story. Now here's the day I really want you to circle. Monday is shaping up to be the most dangerous day of this entire stretch, and it's centered on Wisconsin. The Storm Prediction Center has placed much of Wisconsin, particularly the northeastern part of the state, under an enhanced risk. That's a level 3 out of 5 on the severe weather scale. Surrounding areas, including parts of northern Iowa, southeastern Minnesota, and the upper peninsula of Michigan, are under a slight risk, level 2 of 5. What makes Monday so concerning is that all three major severe weather hazards are on the table at the same time. First, damaging winds. And we're not talking about a marginal wind threat here. Widespread gusts of 60 to 85 plus miles an hour are possible in the strongest storms. That's borderline hurricane force wind in a thunderstorm, capable of snapping large trees, causing structural damage to homes, and creating widespread power outages. Second, hail. Forecasters are highlighting the potential for hail up to baseball size again, and in a setup like this, some storms could produce hail even larger than that. If you've got vehicles you can move into a garage Monday afternoon or evening, that's worth doing ahead of time rather than scrambling once the warnings start. Third, and this is the one that tends to worry meteorologists most, a tornado threat. Forecasters are calling for the potential for a few tornadoes, with the best chance for that concentrated in Wisconsin, northern Iowa, and southeastern Minnesota. Some of the discussion around this event has used language like serious situation, and forecasters have noted this is a setup that could support supercells capable of producing strong to intense tornadoes, particularly if a moderate risk gets introduced as confidence builds closer to the event. That's not a word meteorologists throw around lightly, and it tells you how much attention this day deserves. One more thing that makes Monday particularly nasty. This isn't expected to be a single round of storms and done. Multiple rounds of thunderstorms may impact the same locations throughout the day and into the evening, meaning some communities could see one line of storms move through, get a brief break, and then face a second or even third wave later on. That's exhausting from a preparedness standpoint, but it's important to know going in, don't let your guard down just because the first round has passed. If you live in or near Wisconsin, northern Iowa, southeastern Minnesota, or the surrounding slight risk zone, Monday is the day to have your phone charged, know where you'll shelter if a warning is issued, and keep an eye on the sky through the afternoon and evening hours. As we move into Tuesday, the severe weather threat doesn't go away. It shifts. The same energy that fuels Monday's storms in the upper Midwest is expected to push east into the Ohio Valley, the Mid-Atlantic, and parts of the Northeast. An enhanced risk is expected to cover a good chunk of the Ohio Valley on Tuesday, including cities like Cincinnati, Columbus, and Pittsburgh. Forecasters are watching for a scenario where thunderstorm activity could actually be ongoing from the overnight hours into Tuesday morning across parts of Illinois, Indiana, lower Michigan, and western Ohio, tied to a mesoscale convective system, essentially a large cluster of storms, before a second, more organized round develops Tuesday afternoon and evening as a cold front pushes through. The hazards Tuesday look similar to Monday's. Widespread damaging winds and large hail are the primary concerns, but there is also a tornado threat, with forecasters flagging a few tornadoes as possible, and importantly, a localized chance for a stronger tornado near the Cincinnati and Louisville areas. That's a notable detail. When forecasters specifically call out the potential for a stronger tornado in a particular metro corridor, that's worth passing along to anyone you know in that region. If you've got friends or family in Cincinnati, Columbus, Pittsburgh, or Louisville, Tuesday is the day to give them a heads up. Rich low-level moisture combined with that advancing cold front is exactly the kind of setup that can produce organized line segments of severe storms, potentially in the form of a squall line packing widespread wind damage. By Wednesday, the severe weather threat continues to translate eastward, with storms moving into the Carolinas and the Mid-Atlantic region. The overall intensity of the threat is trending down compared to Monday and Tuesday. This is not expected to be another enhanced risk level outbreak, but scattered severe thunderstorms are still possible, and they can still produce damaging winds and isolated tornadoes. Think of Wednesday as the tail end of this multi-day system working its way off the map. It's still worth monitoring, especially if you're along the path from the Ohio Valley into the Mid-Atlantic and the Carolinas, but the most dangerous widespread threats are really concentrated in that Monday-Tuesday window we just covered. Now let's shift from thunderstorms to the tropics, because this part of the forecast has actually been evolving quickly even in just the last day. There is a disturbance in the northern Gulf of Mexico, and as of this morning, the National Hurricane Center has pushed the chance of tropical development up significantly into the high category, with some of today's guidance putting the odds around 80% for a tropical depression forming within the next couple of days. This system has been getting better organized through the weekend, and there's a real chance it could develop into a tropical depression as early as tonight or tomorrow. If this system reaches tropical storm strength, meaning sustained winds of 39 miles an hour or higher, it will be named Bertha, the second named storm of this Atlantic hurricane season. Here's what forecasters want you to know if you're anywhere along the Gulf Coast, particularly in Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana. Nothing about this system suggests it will become a major hurricane. The bigger concern is rainfall. Regardless of whether this technically becomes a named storm, it's expected to be a prolific rain producer, with the potential for significant, potentially flooding rainfall totals across parts of the northern Gulf Coast. If it does strengthen into Tropical Storm Bertha, gusty winds could also become a factor along the coast, enough to knock down some tree limbs and cause scattered power outages, though this is not shaping up to be a wind-driven disaster the way a hurricane would be. There is still some uncertainty on the exact track. Some of the higher-end model guidance has hinted at a track further south and west, which would be a bigger concern if the system doesn't make landfall promptly and instead lingers or strengthens more than expected over open water. But the guidance the National Hurricane Center is favoring right now points toward a track into the central Gulf Coast, with impacts possibly stretching from the Florida Panhandle over toward Louisiana, and some outlooks specifically pointing toward Louisiana by Tuesday into Wednesday of this week. Bottom line on the tropics, this is not a system to panic over. But if you live along the Gulf Coast, this is absolutely a system to watch. Heavy rainfall and localized flash flooding are the headline concerns, and we will have updates as the National Hurricane Center refines the track over the next 24 to 48 hours. So let's zoom back out and put the whole picture together, because this is a lot of information and I want to leave you with the parts that matter most. Today, Sunday, the threat is mainly across the northern plains, with damaging wind gusts up to 80 miles an hour and large hail possible, tornado risk low. Meanwhile, the upper Midwest is dealing with unhealthy air quality from wildfire smoke that should begin clearing overnight. Monday is the day to really pay attention to, especially if you're anywhere near Wisconsin, northern Iowa, or southeastern Minnesota. This is an enhanced risk day with the potential for widespread damaging winds of 60 to 85 plus miles an hour, baseball-sized hail, and a few tornadoes, with forecasters using language as strong as serious situation, and warning of potential strong to intense tornadoes in the highest risk zone. Multiple rounds of storms may hit the same areas throughout the day. Tuesday, the threat shifts into the Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, and Northeast, with an enhanced risk centered on Cincinnati, Columbus, and Pittsburgh. Widespread damaging winds, large hail, and a few tornadoes are expected, including a localized chance for a stronger tornado near Cincinnati and Louisville. Wednesday, the system pushes into the Carolinas and Mid-Atlantic with a lower overall threat, but scattered severe storms with damaging winds and isolated tornadoes remain possible. And running alongside all of that, we're watching a system in the Gulf of Mexico with a high chance of becoming a tropical depression very soon, likely to be named Tropical Storm Bertha if it strengthens further. The main concern there is heavy rainfall and flash flooding for the northern Gulf Coast, with Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana all in the potential impact zone, and some guidance pointing toward Louisiana by the middle of the week. So, what should you actually do with all of this? A few quick things. If you're anywhere from the Dakotas through the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, or the Northeast over the next 3 days, make sure you have a reliable way to receive severe weather alerts, whether that's a weather app with push notifications, a NOAA weather radio, or simply keeping the TV or a live stream on during peak afternoon and evening hours. Know your shelter plan before the storms arrive, not after the sirens go off. That means identifying the lowest level of your home away from windows, ideally in a small interior room like a bathroom or closet. If you're in a highest risk zone on Monday or Tuesday, that's Wisconsin, northern Iowa, southeastern Minnesota for Monday, and the Cincinnati, Columbus, Pittsburgh, and Louisville corridor for Tuesday, consider moving vehicles undercover ahead of time and secure anything outside that could become a projectile in high winds. And if you're along the Gulf Coast, keep an eye on rainfall forecasts and flash flood watches over the coming days, even if this system never officially becomes a named storm. Rainfall, not wind, is shaping up to be the primary hazard there. This is a fast-moving, multi-day pattern, and forecasts, especially the exact placement of the highest risk zones and the track of that Gulf system, can and will shift as we get closer. We'll be updating this forecast continuously as new model data comes in, so make sure you're checking back for the latest. Before we go, I want to circle back to you. If you haven't already, drop a comment and let me know where you're tuned in from tonight and what the weather looks like right outside your window at this very moment. I love seeing where all of you are watching from, and it genuinely helps paint a picture of what's happening across the country in real time. Stay safe out there, keep your phones charged, and we'll see you back here with the very latest as this system develops. That's your weather. I'm your meteorologist, and I'll talk to you soon.